Ok, are we online? I think so. Buon pomeriggio a tutte e tutti. Good afternoon, everybody. For the most attentive, they will remember that we switched from Italian to English from the second webinar. And so welcome to the third webinar of this webinar series entitled Energy Poverty Between Research and Action. Thanks to everybody and in advance for the participation. Let me also thank the communication office at the University of Trieste for widespreading and disseminating the information about this webinar series. So if somebody from communication office will hear this message or will attend this third seminar, congrats and many thanks to you for the support. For this third meeting delving into the combination between research and action, so between the theoretical and research activities and the practical side related to energy poverty, we will move today, after discovering what has occurred and how Portugal is doing, how Portugal is implementing citizen support activities with reference to energy poverty. Today we will move to a pivotal dualism, I would say, a pivotal combination, which is that of the relationship that is taking shape between energy poverty as a theme and renewable energy communities as a possible tool, let's say, to contrast and to deal with energy poverty, given the relevance that energy poverty is gaining amongst many European member states and amongst a plethora of households, not only poor from the economic sides, but also households that maybe don't suffer the traditional, let's say, economic poverty, but they can suffer from energy poverty on one side due to the increase of energy expenditure. Today with us, I'm so delighted to welcome Heleen Shockaert from REScoop.eu, pivotal organization with reference to the field of energy communities. Met her at the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub conference in Zagreb in 2022, in late June 2022. All of you have already got information about that event, about what Energy Poverty Advisory Hub is. We will discover something more even during the next week in the final event. And by the way, next week will be also the International Week on Energy Poverty, so there will be many spotlights on this topic, because many events, many webinars have been organized. So next week will be pivotal even with reference to these themes. I wouldn't add much about today. The topic is so much interesting that is also characterizing the research activities that I am carrying out. So I am navigating between energy poverty and renewable energy communities development, with particular reference to Italy. So it will be very important also to me, from me, to learn from what our guest will talk about. I will leave the floor to Heleen to present herself in a wider sense, with a bit more words, and also to introduce REScoop, and then so the floor is yours, and then we will move to the presentation, and then we will have, as usual, a Q&A moment. Thanks a lot. Heleen, floor is yours, and thank you for being here with us today.
Well, it's my pleasure. So I want to start already with sharing my screen to see if that works. You should be able to see that.
It works. It works.
Okay.
Perfect.
So community energy for energy solidarity. That's the project that I will be talking about. I will also talk a little bit about REScoop.eu, but I'll start with talking about myself. It sounds weird, but I think it's nice to know the person that is sitting in front of you and giving the introduction to these to both the project and the organization. So so first about me. I'm Heleen Shockaert, born and raised in a small town in Belgium, where I currently still live. I know that sounds super adventurous. I also studied in Belgium at the University of Ghent, where I got both my masters, so one in history and one in international politics. And it's through writing my thesis on power shifts in the energy system in my international politics master that I've gotten in contact with REScoop.eu. So the question about what the transition to new energy technologies which make decentralization in the energy system possible could mean for the distribution of power from big centralized incumbent energy companies with great political and economic power to smaller decentralized players really caught my attention and interest, and it's this question that also lies at the core of what REScoop.eu is all about. So about REScoop.eu, REScoop.eu is the European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives. Energy cooperatives, just to be clear, are just one sort of legal entity within the broader framework or definition of energy communities. I will go into that definition conversation a bit later, but first of all, energy communities, because that's what we are energy cooperatives, because that's who we are presenting at the European level, are groups of citizens who cooperate together in energy projects. And we represent about 1,900 citizen energy cooperatives at this moment from across Europe. We've been growing steadily, pretty fast actually, in recent years, and even in the last couple of months, because these numbers are, I think, 2 months old and they are already outdated. So we are now at 15 employees instead of 13. And there's also some slight changes in the other ones. And together we are working on advocacy, flexibility, citizen-led renovation, heating and cooling projects, energy poverty, gender justice in the energy system, and so much more. So I'm specifically focusing on energy poverty, and I will tell you much more about that in a second. But first, I want to get back to energy communities. So the movements that we are representing got a really big boost with the clean energy package, which was adopted in 2019. Although many of the groups, so the 1,900 groups and organizations that we represent, predate the clean energy package, it's with this package that EU citizens officially won the right to participate in the energy transition. Energy communities came to be acknowledged by European law with 2 official definitions for energy communities. We can now find definitions for specifically citizen energy communities in the Electricity Market Directive and renewable energy communities in the Renewable Energy Directive. Without going into too much detail, these definitions establish energy communities as an alternative way of organizing the energy system. And they put environmental, social, or economic values before profits. And with people like you and me that have ownership and a meaningful say in the running of renewable energy or energy-related services. Importantly, this acknowledgement also comes with a legal obligation for member states to create an enabling framework to support community energy in their country. Because obviously we're small players in a big energy market, and we have a lot of big forces to fight against. So we need a little bit of help with that. But also we need a little bit of help to ensure the accessibility of energy communities for citizens living in vulnerable situations. And now why that is important, why it is important to also include vulnerable households in what we do. This is a question that I want to tackle in the next couple of slides before I get into the concrete things that we do with SEAS. But I just got a notification that my second screen is going to turn black, so I will have to put it on and off again.
Okay, no problem.
Just a second. IT problems are always there at the right moment.
Yeah, but luckily we have time, so even
that's true.
take into account when IT is hostile to us.
Yes. You should normally have the presentation back in front of you. Is it the case?
Yeah, we still have the what is an energy community slide for the moment.
Okay, that's perfect. I will go to the next one. So
here we are.
Yes. So if all of this talk about definition sounds a bit too dry for you, I invite you to watch. Well, I wanted to show the trailer, but I'm not going to do that because the sound will not work. But I invite you to watch the trailer. And actually, if you're watching it on your own, just watch the whole movie. It's a movie that Patagonia made for us, so the clothing brand. They made a 40-minute movie, I think, about the movement. And you will see that you will really get the vibe and the reason why the community energy rose across Europe. So you will see that community energy grew as a response to a problem, the problem being our dependency on fossil fuels, which causes climate change, incredible injustices, and extracts money and resources out of our local communities and just ships them or let them flow wherever we don't really have anything to say about them anymore. So with decreasing costs for solar and wind, new opportunities presented themselves to take a stand against those big forces, and energy communities just took off. And often working together with municipalities or public players, they came together to tackle this problem. So this is all in this movie, and actually showcases a couple of our members in full glory. So it's really nice to watch. This is playing. Okay. Now, a couple of years ago, I just want to give you an idea with this number that the potential is really big. A couple of years ago, this a study by CE Delft, so that is a Dutch think tank, found that by 2050, 1 out of 2 people in the EU could be producing their own electricity, and I think 37% of EU citizens would likely be part of an energy community. And as mentioned, this shift could ignite a significant power shift and democratize the energy system. Knowing that, as IRENA, so the International Renewable Energy Agency, wrote, in a centralized energy system, the financial benefits of energy also tend to be centralized and concentrated in the hands of corporations and governments, and a decentralized renewable energy system, by contrast, gives consumers a true choice of energy sources and a share in the economic benefits. So that's an important number to take into account. And then we have, there's a little bit of background noise. I don't know if you hear that too.
Yes, actually, yeah, I just wrote. So the latest people that entered, please could turn off the microphone. Otherwise, I'm obliged to do myself. And if I do as administrator, then it will be problematic. Thanks a lot. Thank you.
That gave me the opportunity to drink a little bit of water. Okay, so let's continue. On this slide, you see 10 reasons to start or join a community energy project. So some of the benefits that are associated with energy communities. Also, going beyond these 10 reasons, reflecting on the current crisis, we can add to this that we've seen resilience amongst energy community projects throughout the crisis, ensuring clean and affordable energy through citizen-owned and managed projects, simulating energy efficiency, behavior change, and by producing renewable energy locally, they created a degree of independence and resilience against market fluctuations. So I think that's also, just in terms of energy security, I think that's something very important to take into account as well. Now, looking at these maps showing some key energy poverty indicators, it is clear that energy poverty and injustices remain a key challenge for many parts of Europe. You definitely have talked about this in the other sessions as well. So I'll briefly restate the energy poverty definition, but I won't go too far in that. So it's commonly understood as an inability of a person or family to afford basic energy services such as heating, cooling, lighting, mobility, and power to guarantee a basic standard of living, but it poses in turn it poses barriers for gender, ethnic, and racial equality, health and well-being, social cohesion, education, and yeah, basically a lot of stuff. So therefore, access to clean and affordable energy is seen as a basic right and one of the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. This is also something that we advocate for as part of the Right to Energy Coalition. So you were talking about this International Energy Poverty Week. The Right to Energy Coalition, as part of this global focus on energy poverty next week, is also organizing a forum. We have a session on REPowerEU and energy communities there, and I think it will be live streamed. So if people want to know more about that, definitely follow the live streams. So, and as energy poverty numbers rose across Europe due to the current fossil fuel crisis, calls for just energy transition grew louder. And it once again highlights how the energy transition is not merely a question of transitioning from one energy source or technology to another, but it's about coming to terms with the moral implications of energy decision making. So when we embed the issue of energy poverty in the framework of energy justice, it makes clear that energy poverty not only stems from a lack of certain resources like the ones that I mentioned, or the 3 basic indicators that are usually associated with energy poverty, which is low income, poor thermal efficiency, and high costs of housing. And but it is also because there is a lack of ownership and participation and involvement within the energy system. So I think that the framework of energy justice that was really developed by Jenkins and her colleagues is something that really gives, like, puts into perspective what the potential role of energy communities could be. So it's not about only creating, distributing both the ills and the benefits associated with the energy system amongst people, but it's also, energy justice is also about creating the right procedures that everybody can engage, can be engaged, participate, and have access to all information that has to do with the energy system. So that's the procedural justice, but also about recognizing that some groups in our society are cultural, ethnic, racial groups in our society experience or have a different relationship with the energy system than other groups. And we have to recognize that to really get to that justice, and to recognize that we need to work together with them and really hear the different voices within the energy debates. And in those terms, I think that looking at these 3 tenets and the benefits that come with setting up an energy community project, we think that energy communities could provide a unique approach to tackling some of these most persisting aspects leading to energy injustices, because they address energy and social issues at the same time. Also because energy poverty is a very local issue with very local characteristics, energy communities are very local too. So they have a strong local rooting. They focus on energy solidarity and democratic governance models, and I think that really creates like the perfect tool to actually start working on on these justice tenets. This brings me to the SEAS project, the Horizon 2020 project SEAS. It stands for Community Energy for Energy Solidarity. And here we are investigating some of the mechanisms that energy communities from within our network have put in place to tackle energy poverty in one way or another. So SEAS aims to evaluate those approaches, those mechanisms, and then also understand how regulatory and institutional context had an impact on them. And in turn, how with that knowledge, we can create a sort of set of tools that can be replicated by other energy communities across Europe, and really to strengthen our work on energy poverty alleviation and really spreads the benefits from energy communities to people in more vulnerable situations. If that all sounds a bit abstract, I will share some of the examples, some of the partners' examples with you. The first one is REScoop. They are actually the biggest energy cooperative from France. They have 60,000 clients, and that allows them to collect micro donations on energy bills. So they are a supplier of renewable energy, and with each energy bill, they allow their clients to, or their members, to give a few euros to Energie Solidaire, which is a sister project that they have set up. And Energie Solidaire then, with this money, looks for local organizations that are already tackling energy poverty and provides them with extra funding. One of the great examples, which you can also see in the documentary, so in the film We the Power, is Repowering. Repowering works in London, in some of the most deprived areas of London, actually. They work around community resilience and want to create a more participatory energy transition by helping local groups set up their own energy community. So they have a community support service team that helps alleviate energy poverty by empowering residents as agents of social change through training, volunteering, and employment opportunities within the innovation and engagement work streams. And then they have one-on-one energy advice that they support, that they give as a sort of support to residents in innovation projects. Then we have, there's Repowering is doing a lot. So I would definitely advise you to have a look at their website and see what they are all doing. They have also a very big youth program with internships that they create around energy, and it's really all about the skills and about local resilience and creating local heroes that then take over. So yeah, Ali Energy is a partner from Scotland, and in Scotland they are actually, energy poverty is quite a big problem. In some regions, 50% of people are actually in energy poverty, which it's immense. So what they do is, as an energy agency, they identify people in energy poverty, and then they connect them with specific support schemes. So they specifically target, for that identification scheme, they specifically target organizations that work with vulnerable people and life changes that might lead to higher energy bills or decreases in income, such as a job loss, retirement, a new baby, diagnosis of health conditions. So they work with doctors and really teach them how to identify energy poverty. And then those doctors can refer them to them, and then they will help them with specific measures in their house. Because often, sometimes, people go to the doctor and say, like, I have a bad cough. And then a doctor would say, yeah, here's a medicine for that. But they teach them to also ask questions about, okay, do you maybe have mold in your house? Maybe you have a damp house, or there's, I don't know, you might need a renovation of this particular part of your house. So that's something that Ali Energy does. ZES is from Croatia. They also tackle energy poverty in multiple ways, but the specific approach that we were interested in with CES was the way that they try to fight youth unemployment. So they have created this energy advisors program where they train young and unemployed people to become energy advisors, and they in turn go to people living in energy poverty and carry out energy efficiency measures in those people's houses and distribute energy efficiency kits. Then Les Sept Fonds is a French organization that aspires to help homeowners living in poor housing conditions refurbish their own homes. It's called the 3SR mechanism. It stands for Shared Supported Self-Renovation. So this mechanism basically actively involves the participation of homeowners and a group of volunteers in the renovation activities. But they get assistance from one professional. But because they do a lot themselves and with the community, they can really bring down the costs for energy renovations. And in turn, with the knowledge that they built with a specific renovation, they go to a next house. So they created a kind of chain of volunteerism. So if your house was renovated, it is expected of you that you go to the next house and implement that knowledge that you gained in the next house, and that you then create this kind of community of renovators as volunteers, bringing down the costs. And then last but not least, Copernico, maybe Joao already mentioned this, but this is one of the only energy communities in Portugal. They provide cooperative loans as a service to their members, but also their members lend capital to the cooperative to install solar panels for self-consumption and energy efficiency measures. So the cooperative can install solar PV on the rooftops of charities, which can then benefit from lower energy costs. And after, I think, 15 years or something, or I think it's even 10 years or less, the charity gets the PV for free, so it becomes theirs. I would encourage you to check out our website, so the SEA's website, and learn a bit more about what our partners do, because it's obviously not everything. I couldn't talk about everything that they do in this short presentation, but in the remainder of the session, I want to really specifically focus on the work that I've done for REScoop.eu in SEA's context, which focuses more on policy work. So because the success of most of the mechanisms implemented by our partners is very much impacted by their national, institutional, and regulatory environments, it's also very important for us to identify levers to overcome regulatory barriers, and also to find opportunities to see where we still need to push a little bit policy in the right direction. So I will share some key points from our analysis of existing legislation and policy initiatives on energy poverty and energy communities at the EU and national level for SEA's pilot projects. The report is rather long. If you want to read it, be my guest, but I'll just keep it to 2 points for for the EU level and member state level. So first of all, here you see a sort of timeline that I've created. In 2003, you had the first references to energy poverty in the second energy package. In 2015, you had the communication on energy union strategy, introducing the concept of consumer empowerment. Then obviously 2018-19, important year, clean energy package with the definitions of energy communities. And then now, since the Green Deal, we have all these initiatives after the climate law with the renovation wave and the Fit for 55. So Fit for 55 to prepare our entire EU society for decreasing our emissions to 55% by 2050 or 2030. And then Repower EU, which came on top of that in the context of COVID and then the energy crisis. So an assessment of the EU legislation shows that empowerment and protection of vulnerable consumers in the energy system has been historically framed around the idea of rational consumer behavior without really questioning the basic fundamentals of the market. So empowerment was framed around freedom as a consumer to choose in the market, with an emphasis on transparency and access to information, and to create a competition for ever more options. So the clean energy package then took steps to re-envision consumer empowerment, introduce new concepts, such as active consumers, renewable self-consumption, energy communities. And really, we have taken a lot of steps forward with that one to re-envision consumer empowerment. It provides consumers with agency to make choices as citizens and the ability to become active, both as an individual and with others. At the same time, the legislative acquis for energy poverty also has taken a lot of strides forwards. But as of yet, there is still a little linking it with community solutions. So energy poverty and, well, we've for a long time, social and energy poverty didn't really align. We've seen a lot of progress in the current initiatives that are now on the table with Fit for 55 and Repower EU, and in the design of the redesign of the electricity market and all of that. But this is all very new. So historically, it has been about more options to choose from, very liberal, very neoliberal. But of course, for some people, the prerequisites to make those choices are not there. Some people, some social groups that are in vulnerable positions don't really have the means to make a certain choice. For example, this is also a critique that we got a lot, or get a lot, from other organizations, from NGOs that are, or maybe from critical academics as well, which is all we recognize this, but they say like, okay, energy communities empower those that are already empowered, because energy communities are often volunteers, which asks time. Sometimes it's also, well, a lot of the times it also asks for some sort of financial contribution, which a lot of people can just not bring up to to spend on something like that. So there's a lot of barriers, and we recognize this, but we don't think that this denies the potential that is there to really use energy communities as a tool for energy poverty, for energy justice and energy poverty alleviation. So yeah, this was the map that you were talking about, I think, the transposition tracker that we created with REScoop.eu. So what REScoop.eu does is we are tracking how member states are implementing energy community definitions and also the enabling frameworks into their national legal framework. As you can see, Italy is doing pretty good. They got the green color, so that's good. But obviously, there is still a long way to go, and there's especially when it comes to these enabling frameworks, because they also mention, so actually member states are obliged to make energy communities accessible for vulnerable households. We see that, especially there, a lot of work remains to be done. So for the EU to tap into the potential of energy communities as a structural measure to tackle injustices in the energy system, further guidance is needed on what role they can play. We see that member states have been very slow in transposing provisions with regards to energy poverty, with only a few examples so far. I think Italy is one of them. For many member states, both or either one of these issues is rather new. So we have a lot of member states that energy poverty, they didn't have a definition for that. They didn't measure it. Energy communities is something very new for Eastern European and Southern European countries. While energy poverty is actually something that was not recognized as a specific problem in a lot of Western European countries. So there's this mismatch in, I don't know, it caused a lot of mismatch. So for member states, member states need guidance and support at all policy levels, but most importantly, the EU should further eliminate the gap between social and energy policy. And this is perhaps one of the most important obstacles to create a meaningful measure to tackle energy poverty. And that gap can be closed by starting from the needs of citizens in vulnerable situations, and only through identification of individual forms of scarcity that prevent them from making these choices that they are now able to make, that we can come to understand what the discriminating structures are that are preventing these social groups from taking part and benefiting from the energy transition. Then some lessons for the pilot countries, from the pilot countries. So already mentioned, while member states have a legal obligation, yeah, there's not really that much going on in member states to meaningfully connect energy poverty alleviation with energy communities. And what's more, because there's often these silos remaining between social and energy policy, energy poor households may even end up trapped in their vulnerability context. An example, a very concrete example, is Croatia, where unemployed people can lose their unemployment status if they join a cooperative. So research has also shown that vulnerable households can become very reluctant to join an energy community when they receive social welfare, because it may be seen as a form of asset creation, which may lead to them losing their welfare, because they could form assets, so they must not be that poor, so maybe they don't need that welfare support anymore. Of course, that is a big mismatch, which prevents those already vulnerable from gaining collective empowerment through such projects. And it's exactly that collective empowerment, learning and acting with each other, that is needed to address structural forms of injustices. This is something that is really pointed out in a research by Florian Henke. So yeah, he has a lot of work on that, which is really interesting. So yeah, what needs to be done? We need to understand energy poverty to start with, and for that we need participation and involvement of those that are. There's this saying that goes, nothing about them without them. I think it's about something else, but it applies here too. So you cannot make energy poverty policy without people that are living in energy poverty. And I think this is something that has been done too much before. Like, they just say like, oh yeah, we will provide you with some assistance on your energy bills, but this is not a structural measure, and often even traps them in their vulnerability and dependency context. We have to identify the barriers for renewable energy communities to perform a social role. And I think what is needed is that we also embed energy poverty alleviation into renewable energy communities definitions at the member state level, at the national level, so that we can really create the right enabling frameworks and the right incentives for energy communities to tackle energy poverty, but also for vulnerable households to join an energy community and not disincentivize them. And then I think my final remark in this regard is that we need to, and then that's an important one, because now we see that in the current negotiations around Fit for 55 and REPowerEU, we see that energy communities are sometimes a bit thrown in front of the lines. I don't know if this is actually a saying that goes in English, but like, yeah, they're going to solve all the social issues that we have in the energy system. This is not true. I mean, we're small and we rely on volunteers. They're part of the solution, but we are not the final resort. But please recognize us as a tool. Yeah, this is my final slides. This is a vision that that one of my colleagues created. So it presents a vision of our future energy system based on Kate Raworth's donut economy. And this is also where we, as a European Federation of Citizen Energy Cooperatives, see ourselves working towards. The image was created because the current challenges and crises, but also the opportunities that we face push us and oblige us to break the boundaries of how we see ourselves in the world and where we see ourselves moving towards. And that is not always easy to do. And visual aids, such as this one, can offer some grips. So this clarity and transparency are important to get everyone on board of the transition. And this, in turn, is a prerequisite to a successful societal transition that works for everyone. So yeah, donut economics. I don't know if you probably all heard about this. So it's about to not overshoot planetary boundaries, but still strive towards maintaining some sort of ambitious social standards. And we've listed a couple of those based on this vision. So it's about the vision that we carry out is a reduction of energy consumption through a more rational energy use and energy efficiency, a transition from fossil and nuclear to renewable energy sources, collaboration between different local actors or stakeholders, solidarity between the rural areas and cities, between vulnerable and low-income households and those that are well-resourced, and between present and future generations, development and appropriate planning of the use of renewable energy sources to the advantage of citizens and the local economy, the need to integrate local renewables through flexibility and ensuring the efficient functioning of the grid throughout the energy transition, and finally, a direct democratic model for the energy markets concerning prices, planning, and pollution reduction. So renewable energy cooperatives, or REScoops, all across Europe have been promoting and living in accordance with these principles for many years, even before the definitions. And our network really incorporates all these values the EU asks of energy communities and more. But the challenges we are facing today cannot be overcome by governments and large companies alone, or even by energy communities alone. We really need to work together. So yeah, I think what I want you to take away from this session is that we really, energy communities can be an important tool for energy poverty alleviation and move towards energy justice, but we are not going to do that by ourselves. That can also not be expected from energy communities. But yeah, it's through collaboration that we will get there. So I hope this was a little bit interesting, and
it was a lot.
Yes, shoot with your questions.
It was a lot. Thanks a lot, Heleen. Thanks a lot. Clear, concise, insightful, and even strengthened by the power of images. And I would kindly ask you if you could keep the dognut, the idea of the city in the next future through the model of dognut economy, if you agree. So it could also accompany the Q&A moment, so if you agree. Even because related to the questions I have, I will ask you if you could.
Do you want me to put on the screen of the donut
if possible, yeah, of the
Yeah.
donut, and then there also, for instance, I will have some comments about the recommendations, for instance. But before that, given that the past week it was me at first in the Q&A, I would rather prefer for today to leave the floor before to our participants for their questions, and we have plenty of time, so we can take our time with no rush. And so the Q&A moment is opened. Maxim Koltsinov, PhD candidate from the Department of Economics. Floor is yours. Thanks.
Thank you very much, Lorenzo. Hello, Helen. Thank you very much for good presentation. Kind of insightful and appreciated. My topic actually concerned the energy communities. I do my thesis on energy communities and the impact of energy communities. Like, first of all, economic impact, but also, let's say, the possibility to monetize the social impact of energy communities. But my question is concerning like actually your area of the expertise, because like you were speaking that you did some kind of research about the politics like in the energy sector and the power shifts And like, since you were talking that energy communities, they could not provide a complete solution for, let's say, the energy poverty. They should be complemented by the other kind of instruments. And the question is, could you tell if you know any case studies of the symbiosis of, let's say, the energy suppliers or utilities with energy communities? Because energy utilities are very powerful players on energy market, and like, if they do kind of some type of the business model adaptation of the business models, and including it energy communities, and energy communities can get much more resources in terms of initial funding, for instance, or the expertise. So do you know, or maybe you could tell a little bit about some case studies of this symbiosis, like if it is kind of exists, or you have something in your mind about it? Thank you.
That's a very interesting question, and I don't, like, on the top of my head, I don't really know of any specific example of this, but it may also be because it's a bit out of my expertise. But a very interesting form of collaboration, and that is actually not part of the best good practices that we have included in the SEAS project, is, for example, EcoPower, the biggest Belgian cooperative, which is also a supplier, that worked together with ECLO, a city, a local government, to really increase their social impact, and make it possible for vulnerable households to overcome the financial barrier to enter an energy community. Because most benefits that come from energy communities, although, as we have seen in the presentation that I just gave, the energy communities that are in the SEAS project are having a pretty traditional take on this. So they are spreading the benefits of energy communities with vulnerable households without them necessarily becoming a member. And that's also very valuable. But I think that there are specific benefits from becoming a member to an energy community. And this is something that the collaboration with ECLO and EcoPower worked on. So ECLO bought energy shares for people in vulnerable households to become a member of EcoPower. And EcoPower, in turn, because they were a member, they could get their energy from EcoPower, which was lower than the market price. And with that reduction on their energy bills, they paid back the share to the local government. But it's a step that the vulnerable households, by themselves, it would be too risky to take.
The ECLO was actually the energy provider, also like the utility.
ECLO is the local government.
Local
ECLO
government.
Is the city, the municipality.
Okay, yeah. The city, like in Belgium.
Yeah, but it would be super interesting to go and look for examples of utilities working together with energy communities on such projects. But just to say that energy communities working on energy poverty, there are not too many examples. So it remains a challenge for energy communities to just exist, to work with vulnerable households is like, that's next level. So yeah, work remains to be done.
Thank you, Helen.
Okay, I don't know. Lorenzo is frozen.
Am I? Really? I noticed that screen? I can in your screen. Oh, I'm so sorry about that. I hope well, yeah, actually there are some problems with my screen for the moment. That's true. Do you hear me quite well, or it's okay? Okay, so
no, that's perfect.
That's okay. There's a question in the chat bar from Marina Brown. Marina, please feel free also to introduce yourself if you like. It's not mandatory, of course. She asks in the meantime, is there a link to the Eco-Power Cooperative. So I don't know if it was related to the
Yes.
previous question.
Yeah. I will share a link with you to their website. But it is in Dutch, I think. Only in Dutch.
Only in Dutch. Okay, well, quite difficult to read, actually.
Yeah, I know, but I know that they are working. They are also active in European projects around energy poverty alleviation. So those websites are mostly in English.
Yeah.
So
maybe Helen, you can share a link to that English version, because I am working on a digital platform in Germany to introduce the topic of energy communities a little bit more. And for us in Germany, the energy poverty until now was not that in our focus. Then in other countries, we've just seen, like in Portugal or Greece or other European countries. But like I have seen what the researcher Florian Hanke also showed, that it rises up a little bit more in the northern states of Europe as well. In the latest year or in the latest 2 years. So it seems that even in the northern countries like Germany, Belgium, Netherlands, Sweden, it gets quite a big problem the next years. So maybe you can give another statement about that as well.
yeah, exactly. There's I mean, especially in the current energy crisis, at one point I think I started the CEAS project the CEAS project started a year and a half ago. And at that point, energy poverty was people were talking about it, but not that much. And now in a year's time, it really exploded and everybody knew what energy poverty was, and everybody, I mean, a lot more people, even in the middle class, experienced it. So when the middle class is hit, then things start to move. So I think that this also in northern countries was the energy crisis. I mean, you probably heard this all before, right? But they always say, like, never waste a good crisis. I think that there's a lot to learn about energy poverty and the ways that we deal with it from the current crisis. We've spent so much money on measures to tackle energy poverty now, but always they are super short term. And this is also something that we are advocating for, like with current negotiations around the Social Climate Fund, for example, which is part of the Fit for 55 negotiations. Yeah, I mean, we need structural measures. We cannot just keep on, because actually supporting people's energy bills, which is it's necessary in a crisis like this, but it is also kind of a hidden subsidy for fossil fuel companies, and it doesn't take away the dependence of energy poor households from that social welfare, and it doesn't create resilience of those communities. So really, we need a different approach because we are very vulnerable to the fluctuations of the market still. And I think that energy communities as well here can provide, not that they are completely separated from the market, but we've seen some resilience. So yeah, I think that this also opens the eyes in a lot of Northern European countries about this issue of energy poverty and how to tackle it. I don't know if that was an answer to your question. I sometimes tend to
I think so.
start talking about things and then.
No,
But yeah,
that's even the soul, let's say, of the Q&A moment. Like there is no, we can like we can easily be, how can I say, open open it enough to discuss and dialogue very easily.
That's a nice thing about these things, and that would be even nicer in person to have these conversations and brainstorm with each other.
True. Before me, is there somebody else with other questions?
I have a comment, like if it's possible.
Comment, okay, feel free, sure.
Yeah, Helen,
Sure,
thank you. I got some insight from your presentation. You know, like even though like I'm working like on the topic like for some time already, but I got some insight that was not in my head like from your presentation. And I think that's very important. For instance, about the energy poverty subsidies. So subsidies are not the structural solution because subsidies are paid by taxes. And like who are taxed? The people are taxed because businesses, they're also people, right? And so this point that you like pointed that energy communities could be a part of the structural solution of the problem. I think that's very valuable. That was not like in my head kind of craved. Thank you for it.
Yeah, I think that is definitely true, and that's also something that we are advocating for, is for that recognition. But we need that recognition to get the right support because, like I said, we are living or we are acting in an energy market that is designed with big players in mind, with big, powerful players in mind, which are centralized. And I mean, they're strong and they have a big voice in politics as well. That's also something that we are trying to do as a federation, by collecting those voices within our network and making statements together. But still, the industry lobbies, and this is also something very interesting, because now you see that there is this increasing problem of corporate capture of the energy community concepts. And when you get this problem of corporate capture, I think that means that incumbent energy companies are getting a bit scared. Like, who are these new people on our block, and what do they want? And why are they suddenly so all over the place in discussions? So we see that in a lot of countries, we have this issue of corporate capture now, and it's obviously something that is taking a lot of my colleagues that are doing a lot of advocacy work's time. And it's pretty intense as well because, they are very good in setting up these sort of vehicles that look like an energy community. And I mean, as a citizen, not really knowing what energy communities are, I could easily think that they are an energy community. But it's often not the case that you get as much ownership and management power over the activities. It's often, we call them in Belgian finkoops. I don't know if that is a more widespread concept, but it only means that you financially contribute, but it basically doesn't go any further than that. In an energy community, it's one person, one vote. It doesn't matter how much. It doesn't matter how much money you've put into the whole project. If it's 20,000 euros or 50 euros, everybody has the same vote, and that's not the case in these finkoops. And so that corporate capture is something that we see as worrying, but we also think of it as a sign of the fact that energy communities are becoming more mainstream.
Yeah, thank you. And like basically, like we see that in many countries, they apply different legal forms, and that is also the sign of the corporate capture. Before these directives, they were basically the energy cooperatives, and since directives were transposed, like they are registered under like such a variety of the legal forms, and like some of them, like as you told, they are less democratic. They could be less democratic, but like maybe this will be like also a sign of the evolution like of their concept, you know. Let's see.
Yeah, and that is also the problem with the EU definitions. Like I said, a lot of our members predate these definitions, and of course we are happy with the stringent principles that they need to abide by to actually be recognized as an energy community, because it also comes with certain support frameworks. So we are happy that it's a small box, because we don't want to have that the support that we are asking for, because we are having so many difficulties to just survive in the market, goes to people that don't need it. That's also why this corporate capture is a problem.
I see.
Because if they community wash, like you say greenwashing, we sometimes also say community washing. Yeah, that's a big problem for energy communities that are all actually yeah. I see that there's a comment.
Yeah, there's a question in the chat from Ilaria Tani. Do you think that there is the need of involving social services and third sector in community renewable energy communities projects in order to fight energy poverty in a proper way? Very interesting. It's a pivotal topic, especially here in Italy, in my opinion. Maybe not only.
Yeah, I think that's very important. So I was talking about collaborations with municipalities as maybe an important way forward to strengthen energy communities, work on the social aspects. But I also think that we should lever more, or leverage more existing structures, like for example, social housing organizations or homeless organizations, or I don't know, people that are already working with energy poverty or vulnerable households. That's also some of the things that we saw returning in some of the mechanisms of our CEAS partners, is that they are not inventing the wheel and saying like, okay, we are going to set up this whole new energy poverty alleviation scheme. No, they were working together with people that are already very close to communities, which maybe, I mean, it's still a lot of, like I said, a lot of energy communities are volunteers. So sourcing all of the knowledge that is already out there in a common effort, I think, is super important.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really agree with, especially thanks Ilaria for asking this question, even because according to my experience, for instance, and this is a general comment, so to stick with what Ilaria posited, it's like I had the opportunity to have 2 webinars to make like as a lecturer, having 2 webinars on the social dimension of energy poverty. These webinars were dedicated to not governors, but social services, people working in the social services administration within the municipalities, civil servants in the administrative parts, let's say in the administration and for the municipalities, with reference to the field of social services. So social assistants, social services, civil servants, and so on. And I noticed that it's not a criticism, of course, it's just raising a key point, in my opinion, pinpoint a relevant issue. There was the difficulty from the local administrators to get the relevance of energy poverty and their social implications. Like framing energy poverty as a social issue and not only as an economic issue, as an issue that entails technical aspects, was not easy, actually. It was anything but easy, in my opinion. And in this respect, community energies initiatives, regardless they are renewable energy communities as they've been defined right now, or energy cooperatives before, let's say, the RED II and the current legislative framework, could play a pivotal role in bridging this gap, in my opinion, because once local administrators do know that they can launch an energy communities, and they can also have a pivotal role as a public actor in developing that, they can also they can have a leverage for even tackling energy poverty, or rather talking about energy poverty and understanding the social implication of energy poverty, in my opinion, because without community-based initiatives, seen in wider terms, the understanding of the social dimension of energy poverty is still at stake, in my opinion. It still will remain an ill-explored and underexplored issue. So what's your idea on this? Do you agree, or?
Yeah, there's like a lot of ideas just ran through my head while you were saying all that. Okay, let's start with the collaboration between municipalities. I think it's also, we have this energy community guides, which I can show it to you.
Sure.
It's this guide. Oh, my blurred.
Oh, but luckily is famous enough to be remembered easily. Like, yeah. We can say that.
I can share the link again, but in one of the chapters,
sure, I can search. I can search it in the meantime. So
yeah,
sure.
okay. So in one of the chapters, it says the most successful energy communities are those working together with their local authorities. Yeah, that's just a basic fact, and I think this is especially true for energy poverty alleviation and social actions, because they come with these extra challenges of identifying people in energy poverty, and then you have these GDPR restrictions and all of that, and local authorities already do this work through social housing organizations and all of that. So I mean, there is this knowledge. I think that it's just important to like I said, to pool that knowledge. And then I think what I also wanted to say is that I think energy communities are a good partner, because you could say like, okay, your local government, it's also democratically chosen, and it's also why do we need energy communities for that? I think maybe sometimes, at least I don't really have the feeling that I have such a strong connection with my local government, but maybe that's just personal. And having like this extra step in the door through an energy community would maybe give me more a feeling of, okay, I'm doing this with them. They are not doing just for me, because I elected them 4 years ago. But now with these energy communities, you can just sit around the table together. There's more opportunities to work together as equals. I think that is also an important thing here, that you get that engagement is there, that participation, and that also requires from the citizens that are involved to learn more about what the energy system actually is. And I think that we've collectively as citizens have been, and maybe on purpose, have been left a bit in the dark when it comes to the energy system. We've taken it for granted. It's there, especially when you're not in energy poverty, it's there. And it's only when the market starts acting weird that we think, oh shit, we don't actually have anything to say about this, and our money is flowing away. So we are not agreeing with this, and this is also, like I said, where the energy community movement grew. But yeah, I think that these collaborations are super important, and we obviously also need structural systemic measures, which may be possible at European and national levels. But especially for those social issues, we need to recognize the vulnerability contexts. We need to know them, because without just knowing what it means to be in energy poverty, I think we cannot solve it.
I agree. Freddy van Sandford raised his hand.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Good afternoon.
Good
I'm
afternoon.
from Flanders. I've been involved with REScoop Flanders and spent quite a lot of time last year on the transposition of the EU directives about the energy communities, energy sharing. It is, of course, very interesting to know that energy communities offer potential for attacking energy poverty. But the truth of the matter is that after a year of trying these new approaches in Flanders, we come to the conclusion that there are so many uncertainties and so many obstacles. Every involved party wants to preserve its income. The energy suppliers, the DSOs, and also the authorities with the taxes and levies. So the room to maneuver is very, very, very slim. And most frustrating of all, the energy suppliers, they only announced at the end of last year what kind of administrative charges they would invoice for participating in those energy communities. And really, that is so alarming. At the end of the day, energy sharing could become more expensive than not energy sharing. So we're all very frustrated. We are constantly knocking on the doors of the authorities to signal this problem. And I wonder if you experience similar situations in other countries.
Yeah, that's a good question. I think I don't want to answer any question that I'm not 100% sure about, but I would definitely need to look into this, and I'm sure that one of my colleagues wrote about this, and we can get back to you, because we mapped all of these specific problems that energy communities encountered during the energy crisis, and like the challenges, the extra challenges that they encountered with the emergency measures as well. So this is definitely something that I can look up for you. So yeah. Sorry, yeah, if I'm not able to answer that question right now.
Thank you, Freddie, for the question, by the way. And so it's a very insightful Q&A. I'm quite delighted about this. If nobody else have other questions, maybe it's my turn. I have to, it's matter out of curiosity. It's not like something technical. And it's also based on the experiences I had with reference to research activities, empirical activities in the investigation of energy poverty in public housing of Trieste. You, among the final recommendation that you illustrated, there was the suggestion of embedding energy poverty alleviation within the definition of renewable energy communities. From my side, this is very important, and I would really like that further the new initiatives in this respect would embed that. To the other side, to the opposite maybe, we should also take into account that the very notion of energy poverty sometimes scares inhabitants, is a stigmatizing buzzword actually. Like I noticed this during the making questionnaires, like administering questionnaires, asking about energy consumption, energy expenditure, and actually energy poverty in public housing in the city of Trieste. So actually where there is a concentration of vulnerable and fragile families, not only with reference to energy, but also with reference to health, to the place where they live. And so this also leads back to the number of juxtaposed and overlapped issues that create a vulnerability. And like I noticed that the best way to entering in that context was also to avoid talking about energy poverty using that buzzword. So when we try to reproduce or putting the notion of energy poverty within the definition of renewable energy communities, it could maybe turn into a paradox almost, into a counterintuitive issue that could place, or rather could label energy communities as something that is to contrast energy vulnerabilities and energy poverty, with the risk of leaving out somebody else that maybe have no issues of energy poverty and so on. So given that, I agree actually. So it's not my it's not my concern, but it's rather something about how to face the very notion of energy poverty.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question. So as an example, and that is exactly it, it's true, like there's this whole taboo hanging around. Well, nobody likes to be in poverty or in energy poverty, or nobody likes to be called energy poor. So that's definitely something that we need to take into account. But I think that it then depends on how you translate that on the ground. I think the mechanisms that we have in the SEAS project, or the work that is being done in the SEAS project, is a good example of that. For example, we had Ali Energy with their identification mechanisms through, for example, the doctors and maybe the guy that brings the milk to the door, or the bakery. There's this identification mechanisms, and they have these flyers or these kits, but they don't say like, I think you're in energy poverty, but they call it affordable warmth. So it's also about framing it differently when you actually approach people that are in vulnerable situations. So yeah, I think this is a very fragile topic to talk about, especially with people that are experiencing these issues. But I also learned that it's also important that we don't see them as hard to reach, because sometimes they are also called hard to reach. But one person at one point said in I think it was an event in Cardiff, like, I'm not hard to reach. You're just not listening, or you're just not, you don't have the means to listen to what I'm trying to say. So I think that's important. And about embedding it into the renewable energy communities definition, I think I haven't thought about it in this way, but I still think like that it's important that we do it that we have a sort of taxonomy for energy communities that to incentivize them to work on these social issues such as energy poverty. We shouldn't oblige them to do so, but we should support those that want to prioritize this. Because obviously, if you oblige energy communities to do something like this when it would maybe jeopardize their survival, I think that you then kill the kind of bottom-up idea of energy communities as well. But I think that it would be, we have been fighting for an energy poverty definition at the European level. I think the concept itself is not invaluable. It just becomes at the local level something that you have to be careful about when you,
Yeah, that's true. Even because, I mean, there's the choice from the European Union to stay quite vague in defining energy poverty enable member states, of course, to address according to domestic features. On the other hand, I wouldn't say it hampers or harnessing, but of course it could be maybe discourage a bit the idea, the having deeper knowledge from the member states about even how to bridge the possible dualism between the renewable energy communities development and the contrast combating energy poverty. So, of course, I mean, I think we are at a kickoff time at the moment with reference to this combination, to this interplay, even because for instance, in the Italian case, there are some of the energy communities that actually tackle energy poverty. The solidaristic energy communities of Napoli Est, in a fragile neighborhood on the city of Naples, launched with the support of Lega Ambiente, which is let's say an association for an historical association in Italy devoted to sustainability and green issues, let's say. It worked for the contrast of energy poverty. It was quite clear, but even because the energy communities has been developed and launched in a fragile neighborhood of a fragile city, so it was rather a good point in that respect. Energy poverty, or to attack, to link with, in order to develop and to disseminate the existence of this new initiative. Situation is quite different actually from context to context, and this leads back to the relevance of territory, in my opinion, and to the context. As a sociologist of territory, I always think that the territorial implications, the territorial features, the social fabric, the people, the inhabitants in their complexity, let's say, play a pivotal role. They already play a pivotal role, allegedly play a pivotal role in the development of renewable energy communities. And of course, the features that are behind all this, behind the inhabitants, in terms even of medium income, in terms of their energy consumption, is pivotal too. And this therefore refers to the territorial dimension also, because territory is inhabited by somebody. It's not a non-inhabited entity, is not something detached from the social issues. So social and territorial implication when we look at the energy transition should be jointly addressed, in my opinion. Not only in my opinion, but of course is an insight, is something that is highly debated. I also have just one more comment. Was about, especially about the Croatian example that you mentioned about energy advising practices dedicated to youth, to young generation. And I was simply wondering, how young are they? Like bachelor students or high school students or even kids? This was like, if you know about that, just out of curiosity.
Yeah, I don't think that they are employing kids, so it's but it's a good question. I mean, you can never start enough with raising awareness around the energy system. So, but that's another discussion, I guess. No, they are working with young and unemployed people. So I guess that that
NEET,
really
so-called.
Really, yeah, that really relates to people that are recently graduated from high school or university and having difficulties with finding a job, because they may experience vulnerability within their own context. But yeah, this is something that they wanted to combine the idea of creating skills within the local community, together with as a sort of measure for creating resilience and tackling vulnerability in the long term as well, through then also implementing these very specific, very concrete energy efficiency measures in the houses or in the homes of people in energy poverty. So they're trying to combine more long-term measures with specific concrete energy efficiency measures.
Interesting. Yeah, and this comment also, it's strengthen the links with the first webinar with Marina Varvesi. We familiarized basically with energy, with the TED, with the energy tutor activities that have been launched here in Italy through Rete Assist, which is, by the way, a member of the European Energy Poverty Advisory Hub. So I do think that even in this case, the providing advising programs, especially dedicated to younger generation, is quite insightful and important, in my opinion. Energy transition also entails a transition in the labor markets. Like this is without going out of topic, but we do know that once it will increase, once the production of electric cars will increase it, we do know that there are many workers that that now are in the automotive sector that maybe will change job. For the moment, we can therefore act as a leverage on the younger generation for providing more skills in with reference to energy and all that is related to renewable energy, of course, and everything that is related with the renewable energy consumption and even production, of course. So regardless the technical aspects, because we do know that there are engineers in that case for all the technical issues, and also both with reference to the smart grid system of the renewable energy communities, and even to the counting and measuring energy poverty on the other hand. Economists, but also engineers too, are paying a particular attention to the measurement of energy poverty. So yeah, that's quite important.
I think that also that is also something that has become very clear with the transition that we are experiencing now, and with energy communities rising on the scene. I think that the idea of an energy system that is something preserved for people with very specific technical knowledge and with very specific skills is something that is just not true anymore. We are paying much more attention to the social aspects of the energy system as well, and that's also like coming back to the need for reducing the gap between social and energy policy to alleviate energy poverty I think is very significant in the impact that the energy system has on our lives, but also in the type of people that we need to make the transition happen. And I think also energy communities can provide a lower barrier to step into this whole world. Like, I don't know anything about technical aspects of the energy system still.
Me neither.
But I mean,
Me
I'm still active in it, and I think with my profile that wouldn't have been the case a couple of years ago, so or a couple of decades ago. So I think that is a very good progress. And yeah, just to come back to a very concrete example, to that skills development, that is also something that Repowering London is doing with their traineeships. So yeah, just creating that sense of engagement and that sense of having a stake in the energy system is super important, I think, to motivate people to get active within it, and not just. I think that a lot of my friends still see it as something that is super boring and super technical, and they don't know a lot about it. But I think these initiatives, such as the one from ZAS in Croatia and the one from Repowering in London, show that that doesn't necessarily have to be the case, and it can be fun and it can be social. And yeah.
No, no, I think it's too. I think that's too. I agree, because it's. But even in terms of involving inhabitants, citizens in energy communities, we do know that there could be a basis of sustainability-prone inhabitants, people that already was owner of a solar panel, so was already in a prosuming scheme, or maybe was just already used to have sustainable behaviors. Like low consumption lighting system at home, vegan, many aspects, vegan food, and many aspects. So we do know that there is already that basis that could be an encouraging kickoff of people that could be involved in renewable energy communities. What about that? The very challenge is about involving the non-sustainable behavior inhabitants in renewable energy communities, especially because they don't need to own a solar panel, for instance, given that is the preferred technology for the RECs at the moment. According to what I've noticed, and there are also hydropower and other technologies in this.
I think a good. I mean, then we're really reducing energy communities to economical benefits. But I think for some people it's just lower energy prices that are like, okay, I saw that energy communities were offering lower energy prices during the energy crisis, because they could rely more on their locally produced energy and could remain a bit more independent from the energy market fluctuations. That, like, for example, in EcoPower, they also saw a big rise in people that wanted to become a member and have EcoPower to be their supplier. So, I mean, yeah, maybe for some people, energy communities is just about the economic benefits.
Yeah,
and that's
it's
okay
a pretext
too, I think.
for having,
and that's okay too.
Yeah, of course, it's the more leverage we have, the more dissemination of and inclusion of citizens could be triggered, enacted, and steered. Did you have, as a REScoop.eu, exchanges with Enostra in Italy, right? Or with the energy cooperative?
Yeah, they're one of our members. Yeah,
they are members.
They're actually also in the We the Power movie.
Yes, exactly. I don't know about that. Yeah, we could provide the link for the movie. We the Power Patagonia. The
I
full
think
movie is online, right?
it is on YouTube, and it has subtitles in a couple of languages. So
Yeah, there is Italian too. So I will. You will maybe already hearing that. I will put the link. I think it's quite important for the students. By the way, students, Enostra is the energy cooperative that's in Italy, in Italy provide renewable energy. Is an energy provider in the frame is an energy cooperative, but also an energy provider in the Italian framework. It ensures and provides for electricity energy that comes from renewable sources. So it is 100% renewable energy. You can to be supplied by Enostra, you have to be a member of Enostra. So there is a sort of membership to be involved in Enostra. So not only a customer, but also a member of a specific project, I would say, that is within energy transition. Pivotal people, like central people within the Enostra, they always stated a powerful sentence, in my opinion, that is, we do not support energy transition, we do make energy transition. Like, it's not a matter of, I am currently with my research activities trying to support with scientific knowledge rooted in social sciences and sociology of territory, supporting energy transition, but something different from an energy cooperative and provider that works for the energy transition. And due to these reasons, they are also providing consulting activities for the development of renewable energy communities. They did it in Bicari, Puglia region. They did it in Santeramo in Colle, Bari, close to Bari, so Puglia region too, and with 2 smaller renewable energy communities in the center of Sardinia region. So very highly depopulated area, as the central Sardinia is. If no other questions there are,
I have a question.
Do you? Okay, Maxim.
If it's
Final
possible,
moments,
just
I
like
think.
to Lorenzo, maybe
Sure.
like talk about Inostra. So so like as like your research like was done, and like in this very good like work, the energy community map on Italy, I think you were talking like also about the sector builders. So like we could say that like Inostra like is one of the sector builders in Italy. So but like if I'm right, I think Inostra by the Italian legislation is not considered as the energy community itself. Like
No,
maybe
it's not.
It's not, right? So this is like the best example of the energy cooperative that is like a supplier, the retailer of energy, but according to Italian legislation, it is not an energy community, but it can build a spin-off, right? The energy community. In this way, that can do, right?
They can provide consultancy activities for the development and implementation of renewable energy communities, because, and I also asked to Elena comment in this, Enostra, yes, Marina, I will provide the website link in a while. For instance, in the in the Italian context, energy providers are not able to create themselves an energy communities. They can't. And I think this is the right solution, because otherwise there will be a sort of the risk of speculation, we could say, rather. I would ask to Helen, and then I will move to the Ilaria's comment in the chat. Do you know if in other member states there is this, I wouldn't say barrier, this feature about energy providers unable to create themselves energy communities, or there are some more flexible contexts?
Oh, that's a very technical question. I'm going to have to
Sure, no
I don't
problem.
know the specific answer to this. but yeah, I think it's possibly part of the transposition tracker that they create, because they also, I don't know if you saw that already, but they we've published, well, our advocacy colleagues published a document that goes with it with specific examples of how that transposition like what the impact is on the ground. So together with that that slide that I showed you before, with the map of Europe with the green, yellow and orange and red colors on it. So now they also wrote a document that goes with it with very specific examples of how that's
interesting.
No. So I would recommend to read this one. It will probably contain the answer to your question.
Thanks a lot. Marina Brown mentions in the chat 2 experiences from Austria, which worked quite well over the past years in terms of renewable energy production and consumption. Well, we have to take into account that at the Alpine Arch, the Alpine regions, they always have the advantage of having hydropower systems quite sophisticated. So of course, it's not a justification, because I do know that Austria worked very well in terms of energy cooperative in different typologies. Before, Ilaria Tani told us that she conducted some interviews in the Italian context with a case that supports energy poverty in an innovative way. Is the renewable energy community of Fondo Sacca, promoted by Fondazione Comunità di Messina. This is very interesting. I also had the opportunity of interviewing on a remote way the secretary, Gaetano Giunta. So this is very interesting. Ilaria, if you want to add a couple of words on your comment, please, you're welcome. If not, don't feel obliged in this respect, of course.
Okay, yeah. I'm conducting my thesis. Sorry, in English is quite difficult, because when I write it's better.
No problem.
I am from Trento. I'm conducting the courses of sociology and social research, and with my thesis, I conducted my interview with the Eurixe, and I interviewed Gaetano Giunta, and in those cases, in the case of the community energies of Fondo Sacca, the territorial dimension is very important, because Fondazione Comunità di Messina is very present in that territory, and already do a lot of services and activities for supporting poverty in general and for supporting energy poverty. So yeah, in those cases, the territorial dimension and the preconditions are very important. So I want to say that in the Italian context, the precondition, I think that are very important in this moment, and I think that it is difficult that that a community energy can in some way resolve the problem of energy poverty if the project is not supported by proper in some way proper promoters.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it is clear. Yeah.
No, it's clear enough. Maybe I could. Thanks a lot, Ilaria. Thanks a lot for your comment, and also for providing an insightful case. Yeah, because just let me add a few words, even to reply to the Pablo Serra Palau question. How innovative is what is the innovation behind the activities from Fondazione Comunità di Messina? Basically, they started making solidaristic activities even right before the let's say the early anticipation of the European directives in Italy. So when there was the feed-in tariff system, so in the past 2 decades, especially in in the past 2 decades of this century, there was this sort of benefit system for installing solar panel and technology for the production of renewable energy. And they working on this strand by basically, let's say, putting gathering a solidaristic and collective group for buying basically shared energy generated from renewable sources. And this was quite important, because this enabled, on one hand, to work on energy and on sustainability in a fragile context, and then to also create the condition for further developments that then have delivered into the creation of the renewable energy communities of Fondo Sacca. So they also had a sort of redistribution of the benefit system that was created by this sharing and selling of the renewable energy, basically, because the feed-in tariff system was responding to this scheme of sharing and then selling energy that a private or even an organization, such as this in this case, where an organization or a private body or even a single inhabitant was able even to receive an incentive from the sold energy generated from a technology, from a solar panel, for instance, of which that person or organization had the ownership. And then they created a sort of energy parco energetico, in order to even steer and build a social capital and create a community-based initiative. So even to deliver the community-based rationale that was already characterizing the many social activities that this foundation was and still carries out in the city of Messina, and translating, let's say, them to the field of energy transition and with projects related to renewable energy production and consumption. Now they also working on a urban regeneration project of a former highly degraded neighborhood, for instance. So it's something very, very interesting. And now they have they installed a smart grid system, with a 250 kilowatt power of the solar panels. So they are also with 2 shoes into the development of renewable energy communities in the region of Sicily. We are located in a region of southern Italy, region of Sicily. Messina, I don't know if you are familiar with Italian geography, is a city is a town, a mid-sized town in Sicily that is right in front of the, let's say, non-island part of Italy. It's famous for the never-ending discussion about building bridges that would connect Italy to the region and the island of Sicily. Something that would be against energy transition, maybe, or not. Let's see. I don't know. Building bridges in Italy is always something quite problematic due to the high seismic areas that characterize our countries. But let's don't go out of the topic. If there are no other questions, I think that we spent more than an hour by chatting, and I'm very glad about that. I'm pretty sure that the students took a lot. Nothing with the laughing. That's true. I noticed that the student didn't make many questions, but this is not a problem, because I'm pretty sure that for them it was a first time familiarizing with this interplay. Like many of them, remembering the names, were already aware about what energy poverty is on the one hand, and what renewable energy communities are according to the recent legislative and putting in motion framework. But the interplay was something new for them, and also about exchanging, gathering ideas and knowledges, not simply from let's say within the didactical field of university, but also exchanging ideas and learning from an organization such as REScoop.eu was maybe quite something quite new for them. So I justify their silence in this respect, but luckily We had Maxime, we had our guests from outside of University of Trieste that fueled the debate. I'm by being very thankful to even to Heleen especially. Just 2 final minutes. This is the website of Enostra, so to check out something more. And for the Italians to think about being a member or not, and be supplied with electricity by them. And this is the website of the International Energy Poverty Action Week. And if you can notice, you will notice that on satellite event page for the next week is indicated right down UNRI SD, so United Nations Research for Social Development, is us as well. So we are also placed in an international website. Quite glad for this. I'm very thankful to the Energy Poverty Advisory Hub for this. Next week, we will move to the energy poverty data with the Yorgos Kokofikis from the Joint Research Center located in Petten, so from the Joint Research Center in the Netherlands. So we will still stay between Flanders and the Netherlands, let's say, between Belgium and the Netherlands. And we will figure out something more even about the effect of the pandemic on the energy consumption. And we will figure out something more about energy poverty data and policy making within the European Union. So we started with an Italian case, which was that we figured out with Marina Varvesi about the tutor for the TED, tutor per l'energia domestica, tutors for the domestic energy consumption, and it was something about Italy. We stayed in the Mediterranean with João Pedro Gouveia that introduced to us how Portugal is doing with reference to the fight against energy poverty. Today we discovered with Heleen what REScoop is, and it is quite meaningful because it will lead us to the broader knowledge about the renewable energy communities and how REScoop is dealing with the interplay between research and action, so even between energy poverty and renewable energy communities development. And we will conclude by looking at the broader view from the European Union. Thank you to everybody. Thanks especially to Heleen for staying with us for these almost 2 hours. It has been a pleasure for me, and I do hope also for the other guests. It has been really a pleasure, and Heleen, I hope we'll see you again elsewhere, next Energy Poverty Advisory Hub conference or something else.
Yes, definitely. And thanks for having me. And I know that for a lot of people, energy communities are still pretty new, but I hope that will change soon, and every step that we take towards that is a good step. So yeah.
Okay. Thanks a lot to everybody, and thanks also to Pablo Serrapalau for the last comment about Spain. So I will consider about including somebody from Spain in the next at the next time. I will take note about the email. Guys, we will see next week for the final lab, final webinars. Take care, stay safe, everybody. Thanks again, Heleen, for your time and for your contribution. It has been a blast also. So really, thanks a lot again. And see you next week, guys. Goodbye. Bye-bye. Thank you, Heleen.
Thank you to everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye.